Everybody tells you to stay consistent, work harder, post every day, go to the gym, never quit. But no one talks about the cost of consistency. Because if you're building something meaningful, it'll cost you friendships, sleep, comfort, and sometimes even confidence. Today's episode is all about the cost of consistency. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Sistervention. If you are new here, hi, my name is Crystal Chanel. I am your host. Sistervention is a podcast and a safe space for ambitious women who want to level up in every area of life. I love being a big sister, and I hope to be a big sister to all of you and give you that big sister advice. So as I mentioned in the open, today we are talking about the cost of consistency. I decided to do this episode because consistency is something that I have just been struggling with. I talked about this on previous episodes. I have such a all or nothing personality. So either I am operating at the highest level or I am literally a couch potato doing nothing. And I know this sounds crazy because I feel like a lot of my friends are like, girl, you get so much done in one day, but that's because I rather work for 12 hours straight and then do nothing for 2 days than do 4 hours per day. It's just the act of doing the same thing every day just drives me insane. But I've realized that is literally what it takes. Consistency will cost you, right? Every time I'm like, okay, I'm getting in my bag, I'm locked in. You got to say no. I think that's my biggest issue. You have to say no. I'm missing out on family opportunities because my parents want to go out to dinner, or, I have to say no because I want to save money and my siblings live in other cities, so I may not be able to go to their event or hang out with them. There's a lot when you're trying to be consistent. You may miss out on sleep because you're like, I got to get this stuff done. I told myself that I was going to be consistent. I was going to get this done today. Every day we were going to work on my business, and it's midnight and you haven't worked on your business yet. And you're like, you know what? In order to stay consistent, in order to really just grow every single day, I have to show up for myself. And a lot of times it can be very inconvenient and very hard. I find it so challenging sometimes to show up for myself. And I know it's like, girl, what? Show up for yourself. But it's really hard for me and my personality type. It's just much easier to show up when I know that other people are counting on me versus me just counting on myself, unfortunately. And a lot of times I have to really push myself to be consistent and do things, on the day to day, just day after day after day after day, especially when you are really, really goal oriented. And something I've realized about myself, and hopefully you guys can relate to this, and if not, sorry, but I am someone who considers themselves very, very ambitious. I think I'm a very ambitious girl, but I realize I'm not that audacious. And when I think about people who are ambitious, they have a lot of goals. They go after them. They're not scared to go after their goals, and they really want to accomplish their goals, right? I think when you are audacious and you have the audacity, and when I say the audacity, you got to have the audacity of a 5'3" man on Hinge. You know what I mean? You got to have the audacity of the men that you see on the dating apps. That is... We probably should cut that out. That sounds so terrible, but you know what I mean, right? When you look at someone, you're like, what made them think that they could swipe on me? That's the type of audacity I'm talking about that you have to have in order to achieve your goals in this lifetime. And, for me, I feel like I love being successful. I love accomplishing my goals, but I definitely like to play it safe. I am someone who likes to take calculated risks. I really look at the risk versus reward. And I'm like, okay, is this worth it? How much out of my comfort zone is this going to take me? Audacious people, they just show up. They show up and they take up space. You know what? They show up and they take up space. And I think that I could be a bit more audacious when it comes to my goals, right? And I think when I was younger, I was so much more audacious. And I think as you get older, you get knocked down and you have life experiences, you lose a little bit of that. And I realized that the level of audacity it takes to build your dream life is massive. It is massive. It is completely a mental fortitude that you have to have, a level of, I just don't care. I'm going out here. I'm doing it. What is the worst that can happen, right? Because that's the honest to God truth. You're not really going to lose anything most of the time. You have nothing to lose. Go for it. You make a shot in the dark. You miss it, whatever. But that takes a level of confidence and just growth and just really saying my dreams matter more than anything. I haven't been at that point in my life, and I think I'm finally getting there where I'm like, no, we're getting the life that we dreamed of because we cannot stop thinking of it. But I realize in the pursuit of that, you have to be consistent. And the internet will keep telling you like, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that. And we already know that people glorify hustle culture. So then we moved into society of soft life. And you really got to find that balance in the middle, because if you find yourself on either end of the spectrum, if you are all about hustle culture, you'll be burnt out, right? If you're about soft life, girl, you'll be doing matcha and Pilates and you won't have nothing done. It really is finding that balance. But I think for me, it's been really interesting because I've been on both ends of the spectrum. I don't necessarily want to be on either side anymore. But again, that middle ground is the just small acts every single day. And let's just be honest. Some days you just don't feel like it. You literally do not feel like doing anything. Or even like you just don't feel like always having to like be working towards something and chasing your dreams and your goals. And if you're an entrepreneur, you already know every day it's 100,000 things to do. 100,000 things to do. And don't have a job trying to build a company on the side. Jesus Christ. Like honestly, that whole 9 to 5 and then 5 to 9, and I've talked about this in another episode. It's admirable. And, you know, like I said, I'm not who I was a year ago, even last week, to be completely honest. But, you know, it's just one of those things where you're constantly growing, you're constantly learning, and you're constantly figuring out like what you want to do and then also what you just don't want to do. And I don't know if it's because 35 is around the corner for me, but there's just some things I'm just not doing. There's some things I'm not, you know, putting up with. There's just some things I'm like, you know what, that's actually not as important to me as I thought it was. So we're going to push that to the side, and that's okay. But I do think that when we are talking about showing up for yourself every single day and making sure that you are consistent, it's going to cost you. It is going to cost you the fun. It's going to cost you the friendships. It's going to cost you the phone calls. It's going to cost you a lot of like free time and free will, unfortunately. And I think that's just really been, a little difficult for me. I'm just like, I love having a good time. I love my life. I love the fact that I'm just like, la la la, dilly dally, and do the things that I want to do. So hopefully you're rocking with me here. Hopefully I'm not alone. And you feel me on this one, because I do think that we're like so ingrained in like, you got to show up. You got to show up. But I'm going to be honest, guys, ladies. Sometimes you just don't want to. But let's be real for a second. Sometimes consistency is just doing the mundane thing over and over and over again. I know I just preached about how I don't really like doing that, but that's really what consistency is. And I do believe that every day that you really put your foot forward, you will get closer to your goal. But again, as someone who likes to get to their goal like that, and as someone who's spent their entire life being successful and just accomplishing everything they want to do so quickly, things that I want now are just taking a lot longer than I anticipated or wanted or dreamed of. And that really can get frustrating, right? If you're applying to jobs and you're just every day applying, you would think that, okay, if I'm applying to 10 jobs a day, 100 jobs should do it, right? Like you would think like, okay, that's enough. No. The Lord's like, keep going. And you're like, why, Lord? I don't want to keep going. Stuff like that just gets me like, okay, wait. I don't know about this. And that's what I'm talking about at the cost of consistency. Like, yes, it might cost you the time to apply to 1,000 jobs and not just 100. Consistency doesn't always look productive. And I think that is why I like hate being consistent sometimes, because if you apply to 10 jobs a day for 10 days straight, you think that's enough, right? But then when you don't get the call back, you're like, well, Lord, I'm a little confused. Was that not enough? Or even with me going to the gym right now, I think being 34 and trying to lose weight is the most insane thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. What used to work when I was 20 just no longer works, unfortunately. And then I'm on TikTok trying to figure out why. I'm like, Lord, is my thyroid messed up? Like, what is it? Because I'm going to the gym and I'm not seeing the progress. And that's exactly what consistency is. And sometimes it just does not look productive. It doesn't look like the needle is moving, when in fact it is. It is moving, but it may not feel that way. And that's why you have to keep going. Even just take therapy, for example. You're in therapy, you're like, this ain't working, my therapist sucks, it's her, not me. And then next thing you know, you look at yourself a year from now and you're like, oh my God, like I would have totally handled this situation totally different last year. Look at how I handle it this year. My conflict resolution is a 10 out of 10, okay? And if we're being real, shout out to all my content creators who really keep going, because to me, content creation is one of the hardest things to stay consistent with, especially in an era where everyone's filming everything. So you feel like you need to be present and you don't want to document it, but then you also want to share it with the world because you want to be a content creator or influencer, or you started it and you're like, you know what, I need to be consistent. It is so difficult, especially when the algorithm is working against you and you only have 50 views. You're like, why should I keep doing this? Oh, why, Lord? So, I think I think there's a lot of times where we just feel like consistency because it's like, listen, Linda, I can't do this. It's not progressing and it's not, going the way I want it to go. And I hate that for us, but you know what? We got to keep going. We have to keep going. And I'm right there with you. That's what this is all about, right? This podcast is to make sure you feel not alone. You're not crazy. You're not going through it alone. We're all in this together, sister. And let me say this. Sometimes you really do just need to rest, right? Like there are times when you have been going hard, you've been consistent, and you're just completely burnt out. And we talked about that with the hustle culture. Sometimes consistency can turn to hustle culture. So it's really important to really be in tune with yourself and understand when you need to rest versus when you need to quit. Because season 1, I hate to call it a season 1, but before the relaunch, we did an episode of like when to pivot, because sometimes, baby, it's just not working, and that's okay. That is okay. But I think it's important to know when you need to rest. Consistency could definitely be one of those things. Like I'm grinding. And before you know it, you look up, you're like, who am I? What happened? I don't even know myself anymore. I have not come up for air. And that's exactly what we don't want. That'll cost you as well. And that's what I mean when I say like the cost of consistency, because we're so ingrained in our culture. Like you got to stay consistent. You got to stay consistent. I'm just like, listen. The girlies are struggling. They need to take a beat. They need to take a break. And honestly, a lot of clarity comes from taking a pause sometimes. So I am always a firm believer, as you guys know, we took a large pause on the podcast, but I'm a firm believer of like, take a pause, take a beat. You'll figure it out. Just give yourself time. And it's okay. Like you can still be consistent in other things and take a pause on something else. I think the biggest thing is like, okay, if I eat bad one day, don't make that 3 days. If I have one bad day, make sure that's not 5 bad days. Like that I think is more important, because life is always going to be ebbs and flows. So we got to roll with the punches, right? Like every day is not going to be perfect. And I think for me, that is part of the problem. If it's not perfect, throw it away. If it's not perfect, it didn't count. And that's not true, right? That is just so not true. If you had a to-do list of 10 things, knock off 2. You still showed up for yourself, and there is consistency in just literally showing up day after day for yourself. Even if it's just getting out the bed, brushing your teeth. Times are hard. People are going through it right now, and consistency looks different for everyone. It doesn't look like, the trips and the money and the jobs and the accolades. Sometimes it's literally just getting out of bed, making up your bed, and making breakfast and calling your mom. And that's enough. Consistently showing up for yourself every day is what counts the most. And moving the ball forward, I always say, I think of a big hill, and it's just like, I'm just constantly going up the hill. And even if that ball rolls back, as long as I keep pushing it up the hill, because that's what I want to do, and that's what I feel compelled and called to do, then I'm on the right track. And that's what I mean. Like sometimes you might just be consistent at the wrong thing, but if you feel called to do something, you're operating in purpose. That is all that matters. You don't want to get in a consistency trap of just doing things because that's what you think you're supposed to be doing. In my opinion, always operate with purpose. Always make sure that you're doing your moral compass and checking your life. Is this what I'm really supposed to be doing? I constantly ask myself, like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Because baby, if not, please make it stop. Make it stop, Lord. I just don't want to be out of alignment. I am such a firm believer of alignment. I don't want to do things that I don't like to do. And it's a difference of like, okay, like this has to get done versus like, it just doesn't feel right. Like sometimes in my workout, I'm like, this feels out of alignment. My trainer's like, keep going. And period, keep going. But other times I'm just like, this is not for me. And I'm happy that I know myself and I'm confident enough to trust myself and say, no, this really isn't for me, and not get stuck in that consistency trap, So I don't think consistency is about never missing a day. I think it's about deciding who it is that you want to become and making sure that you're working towards that every single day. I thought this episode was so fitting because obviously after relaunching the podcast, there is just a level of pressure and just I got to get it done and I have to stay true to what I said and my word is bond, and people are going to be like, oh my God, like she's starting over again. Full transparency, I started my first podcast back in 2018, right? It was called Clear the Air, and I had a podcast and I loved it. And I did so many different variations of the podcast. I did Clear the Air Unfiltered with one of my friends, and we did more like pop culture stuff. And when I first started Clear the Air, I really wanted to clear the air of misconceptions among millennials and just pick topics that were necessarily like myths or taboo and just like clear the air. And, you know, the pandemic came and I was like, okay, like it's a lot going on in the world. Stop doing the podcast. And then I came up with this idea of Sistervention. So, you know, I'm someone who necessarily hasn't been the most consistent, especially when it comes to my content creation and on-camera work. And I see, you know, other creators, especially when I lived in LA, everyone's a creator. And I look at all these amazing creators who have stayed with it. They've had their podcast from 2018 and now they're going on year 8. And I'm like, not me starting over again for the 100th time. I'm sure it's cost them a lot to stay consistent and to be able to keep pushing through and keep doing what they need to do. But, you know, I also missed out on a lot. Like I missed out on a lot of opportunities. I probably would have a much bigger audience, but who knows? When I think about, you know, the lack of consistency that I've had over the last couple of years, I said, okay, what do you really want and what are you willing to do to get there? And what are you willing, like, what is the price you're willing to pay, right? Because there are sacrifices that need to be made. And when you talk to successful people, they're always talking about what they had to do to get where they're at. And I love me some Emma Grede, and I know there's a lot of controversy around her, but when you read her book and you listen to her speak, you know, she definitely has to make sacrifices to show up every single day and do the things that she says she's going to do, because not only are people depending on her, she's a mother, a business owner, a wife. I'm, you know, not a mother, not a wife. So it's just me. Okay. Me is depending on me. Obviously I have my family, my friends, but you know, I don't even have half the responsibility. So I figure I owe it to myself to really show up. And maybe this episode should have been called Show Up. Okay. Because it's so important to show up, you know, mainly for yourself, but also for others. Let's be consistent. And honestly, let's pay the price. Let's pay the price of consistency. It's going to cost you, but in the end, it'll be so worth it. I think about all the times where I'm on a fast or I'm on a diet and I'm trying to lose weight and I'm trying to be healthier. And I'm like, I can't go to the event. I can't go to the event. I can't. And I hate saying I can't go to the event. If anybody knows me, they know I love to attend an event. I love to show up for others. But listen, in order to get to the next level, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you some friendships. It's going to cost you to get off that phone. I love my friends. We FaceTime all the time because a lot of them do not live here. It's going to cost me. Okay, I'm going to say, girl, got to go. Click. Sometimes it's going to just cost you to, you know, reach your dreams, reach your goals. And I'm so excited. I want to reach them with you guys. I'm excited for you guys to be on the journey with me as I grow. I think originally when I launched the podcast, I, you know, wasn't as transparent as I could have been. And part of that is just because you want to appear perfect. You want to appear what you think a host should appear like, right? And, you know, we be in the trenches. So I'm here with you guys, and it's not always beautiful. It's not always fun. I want to be able to show you guys the fun parts of my life too, because life is really fun. I have a lot of exciting things planned for the rest of this year. So, you know, we're going to have a ball and I'm going to bring you guys along for that too. But these moments of missing out on the events, missing out on the phone calls, missing out on the family time, you know, it costs. It costs to be consistent. It costs to be successful. And I'm willing to pay the price. If you're willing to pay the price too, drop a comment, leave it below. You know, I definitely would love to hear from you guys of what being consistent has really cost you, right? Like a lot of times it's not fun. Being disciplined is not fun. You're not the fun girl. You're not out partying. You're not out drinking. You're not being able to, you know, have all the pointless conversations and just the kikis and the girl chat and all the things. Wow, I've had so much fun with you guys today. I'm so happy to be back on the pod. And this is the type of consistency that will change your life. If this episode has resonated with you, make sure you like and subscribe to the podcast on YouTube. YouTube, leave a comment on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to this podcast. I am so grateful for my community and my audience. Thank you so much. And until the next time, I'll see you guys. I'm your host, Crystal Chanel. Thanks for listening and watching. Bye.